Welcome back to Proof or Potion, the podcast where we take a skeptical but curious look at natural health remedies and dig into the actual science behind the claims. Today, we're diving into a fascinating study that tackles one of the most universal struggles out there, sleep. The title, Effect of Ashwagandha or Withania somnifera Extract on Sleep, a Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis. It was published in a journal called PLOS ONE in 2021 by a team of researchers at a university in Malaysia. What makes this particular study cool? This isn't just one clinical trial. It's a meta-analysis, meaning the researchers looked at results from 5 separate randomized, placebo-controlled trials involving nearly 400 adults. That gives us a much clearer picture of the overall effectiveness of ashwagandha on sleep rather than relying on just one small study. In terms of the study details, participants were all adults, some were healthy, and some had clinical diagnosis of insomnia. The studies included a range of ashwagandha doses from fairly low to more commonly used higher doses. Study durations varied too, from a few weeks to 8 weeks, 10 weeks or more. The researchers were looking at 2 main things: how well people slept and how long they slept. They also checked for side effects and tracked things like anxiety, alertness upon waking, and quality of life. How did they analyze the results? To ensure quality, 2 authors independently reviewed and analyzed the data. Because the studies used different tools to measure sleep, like wearable trackers and questionnaires, they used a method that allowed them to compare across those differences in a consistent way. What were the key findings of the study? What did they actually find?
What did they find?
Does ashwagandha help with sleep? First off, across all 5 studies, ashwagandha significantly improved sleep compared to a placebo.
Huzzah!
In all 5. That means people taking ashwagandha consistently fell asleep faster, slept better, and woke up feeling more rested.
Awesome.
And the benefits were especially strong in people who had insomnia, not just the average healthy adult who wanted to sleep a little better, which makes sense if you're struggling with sleep, but it's good to know. Higher doses, thinking 600 milligrams or more per day, and longer durations, meaning at least 8 weeks, were linked to even better sleep results. In other words, this isn't a quick fix from a single pill, but something that may work better over time. It is an adaptogen. The herb also seemed to help with morning alertness and reducing anxiety, which aligns with its reputation as a calming adaptogen. Interestingly, it didn't make a big difference in people's overall quality of life, at least not in the way that was measured in these studies. That could be because of how quality of life was assessed, or simply because the studies weren't long enough to pick up on the broader impacts. In terms of safety and side effects, here's the good news. No serious side effects were reported in any of the included trials. Some people experienced mild things like headaches or GI discomfort, but these were rare and also happened in the placebo groups, which I believe were using starch and rice starch. That said, the authors were clear that long-term safety data is still lacking, so that's something to keep in mind, particularly over that 12-week or 3-month period. Some of the strengths of the study were checks a lot of boxes. It was carefully conducted, used good methodology, pulled from a wide variety of data sources. It also included both objective measures like wearing the sleep trackers and subjective feedback from participants where they report their results. And the researchers didn't just look at sleep. They looked at related factors like anxiety and alertness, which helps paint a fuller picture of how ashwagandha might work as an adaptogen.
Cool.
So, some of the limitations, that said, no study is perfect. Only 5 trials were included, which is small for a meta-analysis, and a fairly small number of participants, 400 overall, is not a huge group. There were some variations in the type of ashwagandha used. They were all capsules, but different sources, which makes it a little harder to draw conclusions. And they were all done in Asia, mostly India, Malaysia, so we don't necessarily know how these findings apply globally. Finally, while people slept better, their quality of life didn't necessarily improve dramatically, at least not in a measurable way that participants reported, according to those measures. So there's other ways to assess, if sleep actually translates to better day-to-day functioning. But there were certainly a number of positive outcomes as well. So what's the bottom line? Ashwagandha shows some strong early evidence for helping people improve sleep, especially for people dealing with insomnia, and especially when used at higher doses and over a longer period. It may also help with anxiety and mental clarity, as it appears to be safe for short-term use. But the jury's still out when it comes to long-term safety, standardized dosing, and real-world impacts beyond just sleep scores. And that brings us to the moment of truth. So, what do we think? Is ashwagandha for sleep proof backed by real science, or just a potion, popular, promising, but not quite proven. On this one, we're leaning towards proof, but with a little asterisk. It works best with the right dose, enough time, and realistic expectations. And as always, talk with your healthcare provider before adding any supplement to your routine.
So cool. I love this because sleep is something that affects so many people, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know you see these sorts of patients in your practice. I know at the teaching clinic at the school, it's like every other patient has got sleep on their list of things that they need help with. So the fact that we can actually say, hey, this is something that works, it is going to take a little bit of time, and we do need to make sure you're taking the right dose, but could be a great addition to like a routine.
Yeah, I think so too. And that this ashwagandha does have some patented extracts, by certain companies who do use the same source and the same plant material and standardize it to certain compounds in the extract. So ashwagandha, we're not going to promote any particular supplement company or brand on here, but just to let you know that there are certain products out there that have been a little more standardized and are getting more heavily researched on the science. And so that's also encouraging that we might be getting some of these more predictable products that can be used for certain outcomes. So I think it was a great study, and I think it's really exciting to see, multiple human clinical trials on a particular outcome. Yeah. Which is exciting.
So you were telling me something earlier. How many, when they started, so this is a meta-analysis, right? So that means that they take a whole bunch of studies and then they pare them down to like which ones meet a certain set of standards. What did they start with? You were saying something crazy.
I think it was 1,200 studies.
That's a lot.
They began with in their search. They go through all these different research databases, and 1,236 records were initially returned from the comprehensive database search. And
they boiled that all
the way down to 5 that met criteria. After completion of the initial screening, 10 were originally included, and then down to 5 based on the specific inclusion criteria. Some were removed due to protocols not being randomized, outcomes not related to sleep, stuff like that. So
awesome. Now, there was another question I had earlier. You said ashwagandha is an adaptogen. Tell me what an adaptogen is, because I feel like that's something that a lot of us don't understand.
Super important. So the adaptogens were originally coined back, Soviet soldiers, can't remember the year, but it was something that they discovered with Panax ginseng originally, I believe was the first one. And they realized that this plant was giving the soldiers more physical stamina, more mental stamina, more energy, better sleep. Essentially, it was working on the stress response and increasing resiliency to daily stressors. So the body, when we think about stress, that typically sounds like a negative term, where it's because a lot of us have chronic stress, but the body is meant to go through periods of acute stress and then recover. But when you're under chronic stress, it can really burn out the adrenals and have downstream effects on everything related to the adrenal glands, which is your sex hormones, your sugar metabolism, what else am I forgetting with the adrenals? Let's see,
did you say sex hormones?
Basically, stress, sugar, and sex are kind of the big 3.
Yes.
Where, cortisol is produced and your neurotransmitters and your hormone regulation. So there's all this going on, and adaptogens are meant to support all of those systems and your adrenals. And it's something that you usually take long term. It's usually non-toxic. So it's something that is generally safe. We're not going to make a complete statement about that. Always check with your medical provider, but generally safe for long periods of time and used for that overall resiliency. Most people, I think, because of the studies, take them for a few months and then will take a break and pause and then resume. But they're these incredible resiliency herbs. And so you'll see with ashwagandha too, there's studies on all kinds of things. There's studies on, stress and anxiety and cortisol and sleep. There's studies on testosterone and thyroid, and there's kind of early days in some of these other categories, but adaptogens do a lot of different things.
Awesome.
So you're going to see kind of this big spectrum with them too, because they do act on a lot of different things. And I think sometimes that's confusing for people, because with drugs, it's typically a single target, single effect. And sometimes there's these kind of side effects, or they'll be used off label for this or that. But with herbs, there's, hundreds of compounds in these plants and these extracts, and they can have a wide variety of effects, and some are stronger than others. And but with adaptogens, they're meant to do kind of support the whole system in terms of stress and resiliency, which is really cool.
Amazing. Thank you for that explanation. That, like, even I forget sometimes what adaptogens are. I always just say in my brain, like, they just help us adapt a little bit better to life, right? Like,
there you go. That was way simpler. Yeah.
But way more scientific explanation, right?
Life, resiliency.
Yes.
I think resilient is the key word, and stress.
Yes.
And in America, and just these fast-paced cultures that we live in, having that, support system. I forgot about it all through medical school, and then realized I should have been supporting my adrenals the entire time. But you forget, because you're so burnt out and stressed out, that you forget. And then I always kind of like come back to them and reintroduce them. And I'm currently taking a couple, and they have been fantastic.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Yeah. So given that we have decided that this is proof, right? Is this something you would...
With an asterisk?
With an asterisk. Okay. Is this something you would add to your routine?
Absolutely. Yes. And that's because I've looked at additional research as well, and I feel very comfortable with it in terms of the amount of evidence and personal experience and things like that, and client experience. So yes.
Awesome.
How about you?
I guess it's something I will be adding. Yeah, I'm like, I have a bottle in the cupboard. I totally should be taking it.
Yeah.
I feel like just like what you said, I only take it when I'm like absolutely out of my mind, and then I take it once and I'm like, oh, it didn't do anything.
It didn't do
right?
anything.
Oh, yeah,
like,
because you took it one time. Like, these are definitely things that need to be taken over a longer period of time for that good effect.
And I will say, things that lower cortisol, I tend to forget that they exist. And then when I start taking them again and feel my cortisol drop at the end of the day,
like, oh,
it's literally so magical. And I'm so grateful that I reintroduced it into my routine, into my supplement routine. So
cool.
Yeah.
So in summary, ashwagandha for sleep. Evidence would show proof with an asterisk, of course. We might add an asterisk to every single proof that we have.
There may be an asterisk every time.
There were literally probably
it's science.
It's science, right? And
science
what do we
is
mean
always
by that?
evolving. It's always changing. We're always getting new
Absolutely.
data. And is it, okay, this was in India and Malaysia, can we draw conclusions everywhere? No. Like, there's always going to be some caveat of, I have this condition, or I'm in this age group, or I'm pregnant, or whatever. Like, there's all these layers.
So true.
So there might always be an asterisk, but
that's okay.
It's okay.
We're here to talk about at least what we know of at the moment. So
sharing the research. So tune in next time for our second article review on Proof or Potion. Like, subscribe, comment. Let us know if there's anything you want us to investigate. We're here for it.
Thanks for dropping in. We'll see you next time.